I'm Matthew Malcolm with California Ag Network, reporting to you here today from the California Fresh Food Association Annual Conference in Ojai, California this year. One of the keynote speakers at this event was Nicola Twilley. She's the author of Frostbite. She's got the book right here. Keynote speaker, you did a fantastic job. It was really interesting to hear about this topic. You know, as you prefaced your conversation with our farmers here today, you said that California is the coldest state in the union. Now obviously, we're not talking about the environment, the temperature, as it gets really hot here, particularly in the Central Valley. But tell us exactly what you meant by that.
Well, yeah, so it's not how most people think of California, you know, sunshine, coastline, those hot summer temperatures, blue skies. But in fact, there is more refrigerated space in California than in any other state in the union by a lot. Washington's in second place, but it is a distant second. So California has the most refrigerated space, and that makes sense because we are producing the nation's, frankly, much of the world's fruit and vegetables. So that's why we need the cold space. And it's actually been that way for a century. As early as the 1920s, the Salinas Valley had more ice-making capacity than New York City. So this has been the cold place for a very long time.
Now, you took on this project to write a book. Now, originally it was supposed to just be an article, but it turned into a how many page book?
Yeah, it was supposed to be an article. Now it's a 300-page book. And I will say that, 300-page book on refrigeration sounds like, well, if I can't get to sleep, this will do the trick. But the New York Times did call it a page turner. So, I fell deep down the refrigeration rabbit hole because I think it is so transformative in so many ways that people don't know. I mean, people don't know that refrigeration's responsible for the invention of the cheeseburger or the hoodie or Irish independence or all of these stories that our modern world wouldn't exist without refrigeration. And so that's what I was trying to do with the book.
And this project has taken you all over the world to really explore the history and how people, make food preservation work. You've discovered, throughout history, the different perceptions of consumers and what's considered fresh. And I guess I wanted to just summarize a little bit what you shared with the audience today as far as what you've learned from this undertaking and what California agriculture, our farmers here, could learn from that.
Well, so one of the first things I've learned is that this is really recent transformation. We depend on refrigeration today. We don't even think about it. I mean, obviously, if you're a grower, you think about it because it's central to your business. But most consumers, sure, they have a fridge. They don't realize it's the tip of an iceberg that is getting their food to them and that we utterly depend upon, but is invisible to most people.
And there was probably no such thing as leftovers before, right?
The word leftover was invented in the 1920s. It did not exist before. I'm not kidding. So that is literally one of the stories I tell in the book is how that, and new cookbooks, new recipes designed to use up leftovers emerged at about the same time because people had never had this problem before. So it's a really new phenomenon. You know, for all of human history, we've been able to add heat to food, but taking heat away is a very, very new thing. Very transformative, and I think one of the most interesting things is how it has completely transformed our understanding of what freshness means. So fresh used to mean it had to have been harvested nearby and really recently. It was something that you knew in terms of time and space, the physics of freshness. And there was non-negotiable. You could make food last longer. You could turn your raspberries into jelly or something, but it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't fresh anymore. Refrigeration transformed all of that. And here's one of the interesting things. When that first happened, the American public did not like it. They regarded these refrigerated foods as zombie foods, that they weren't truly fresh. How could they be truly fresh? They had been stored in the cold. And so one of the things that's been really interesting to me is see that you can go to parts of the world that don't have refrigeration in a U.S.-style cold chain, and that's still the attitude. When I was in Rwanda, the food that was rejected for export, so it had been in the cold storage room as if it was going, out on an airplane, actually ended up being sold in the public market. The traders told me they have to sit it outside in the sunshine to warm it up because locals will not buy it if it has been refrigerated. But that was the attitude here in the 1910s. Same exact attitude.
Well, and like you said, consumer perceptions and the attitude changes over time, and more recently, consumers are and some of the, you mentioned some, companies like Chipotle or something advertising that, none of their foods were frozen. What's considered fresh today?
I think that's really interesting, and I think it's an important question for the future because most people do not know when their food was harvested and how long it has stored and traveled to get to them. That could be considered a good thing. What you don't know won't hurt you. It's fresh, right? That's all you want. But I think it's something that we are going to run into as the future of these technologies emerges. And one of the things I talked about in the presentation was, we want fruit to be fresh. We don't actually need it to be cold. Cold is not the goal. Fresh is the goal. And so if there was another technology that gave us that freshness, we didn't have to use refrigeration, well, why wouldn't we use that? Well, one of the reasons is consumer perception, because now we've done such a good job of associating refrigeration with freshness that people see something that doesn't have to be refrigerated, that maybe has been, sprayed with a nanoscale coating that preserves the freshness just as well, doesn't have to be refrigerated, can be stored at ambient. That's got a lot of benefits for our energy bills and our emissions and so on. But the public are like, oh, I don't think that's really fresh. I don't trust this. What are you doing to my food? One of the things I shared with the growers is I think, it's important to remember that we've been through that before, the first time around. None of us were alive then. It was 100 years ago. But the public didn't trust refrigeration then. They thought these foods were unsafe, unhealthy, zombie, unnatural. And that's exactly what we're going to get if we try and evolve our storage techniques today. But we got through it before. We'll get through it again.
Yeah, it's really important to know your history. Otherwise, history might repeat itself in some negative ways. But I think that's what great insights you've learned in developing this book. Congratulations, by the way, on that.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming to share this with us. I think there is a lot we can learn moving forward in the future for providing the freshest options, especially from agriculture's perspective, to our consumers.
Right, that's the thing. We all want fresh, safe food and a minimum of waste, right? That's the goal. So understanding how we got the system we have is going to help us design a better system in the future. We're still, we're not at the end of the story, is what I always like to say. Stay tuned for my next 300-page book. No, just kidding. But I think you're absolutely right that in understanding how we got to here, that is going to help us think in a smarter way about where we want to be.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Be sure to look that up, Frostbite. Nicola, thank you so much for sharing these insights today. Read more about these things in our publications. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.